Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Luke Wilson coming to you from my backyard here with Snoop Dogg and Will Ferrell. Welcome to Host, Chief, and Deputy. Hello, this is Matthew McConaughey coming to you from my ranch down in Kilgore, Texas. Everybody take your shirts off because it's another episode of Host, Chief, and Deputy coming your way. I'll tell you what, Al, this is Chris Collinsworth coming to you here from the Sunday night booth. Really excited for the new episode of Host, Chief, and Deputy, starring a guy named Vasily Larikos, the Greek freak as they call him, and Kyle Buber. Take it away, guys. All right, the fellows are back. We're Chief and Deputy. The illustrious intro, obviously taking care of my work that I have to do here. So my name is Jake Luke. I'm the only one that was not introduced there, but I will now once again reintroduce you guys, Kyle and Vas. How's it going?
Doing good. The intro gets better every time.
It really does. I enjoy it more thoroughly each and every time I hear it. I have gone back and replayed it a couple times just to get a laugh. So full appreciation for it.
I think I have too, and nobody laughs at their own jokes more than I do. So that definitely makes sense that, of course, I would be doing that. But here we are, new year, 2021. First episode of Host, Chief, and Deputy in 2021. How does that feel?
I'm excited about it. It's even more exciting now that we have postseason football on the horizon for the Baltimore Ravens. This wouldn't be as fun of an episode had they lost this last game or had missed out on the playoffs due to not being able to control their own destiny. But all that is moot because the Ravens are in, they're in the dance, and there's nothing more exciting than playoff football.
Absolutely. New year for the world, obviously, and new season for the Ravens. Bit of an up and down season, but at the end of the day, they have a fighter's chance now.
Absolutely. Before we also get into all that, did want to quickly offer up a few words on the passing of Marcus Weish, who is a great member of Ravens Twitter, just a really positive, fun guy who I think he was a fan of this program to some extent. I had a couple interactions with him. Just a very positive, just one of those guys that, a very good person, you can tell in a lot of different ways. So just wanted to say a couple words from him. I don't know if you guys had any interactions with him at all, but I was saddened to hear that he had been battling cancer for a little bit. So it is certainly tough to see that kind of thing happen to somebody. But just wanted to I think, like I said, he was a fan of this program, so just wanted to throw some words out there for him.
Yeah, I interacted with Marcus quite a few times. He was super polite. He loves the Baltimore Ravens. And he was really just a nice and kind person when interacting with him on social media, when interacting with him on the website itself. Even Jeff Z was on there when he found out about the news of it, and Jeff even said, Marcus was such a good man. Terrible news. All the best to his family. I think he was beloved as a fan and figure among social media and blogs in journalism pertaining to the Baltimore Ravens. And rest in peace, and all my best wishes to his family.
Amen. Amen. Yes, I also interacted with him on social a little bit, and definitely seemed like a great guy. We'll miss him for sure.
Absolutely. So moving on from that, what do you guys have here on the docket to talk about on this little quarterly show that we've gotten into a good rhythm with?
Very much of the similar vein of our episodes. We're going to do, the quick review of the last 4 games. We're going to talk about the wins. Fortunately, they're all wins, which is really enjoyable to talk about. We're going to go through our coaching analysis, some winners and losers, and maybe talk about the postseason. Anything I need to add there, boss?
No, that's it. We'll keep it nice and tight and informative, hopefully.
Perfect. I'm all about it. Now, we're going to start off with the game review. Let's go through the first one, which was the game of the year. The Baltimore Ravens and Cleveland Browns faced off, and on national television put up a spectacle for the ages, a 47-42 victory for the Baltimore Ravens. And I found this to be the catalyst for the season's change. Jackson was called upon, and he delivered all the chaos of him being injured, him dealing with cramps, Trace McSorley being on the field, him injuring his knee on a 3rd and short. There's 4th down. Lamar had to come back in, and he shows up. He met the moment, and that's enormous. And in all those plays aside, he had to call upon, the Ravens did anyways, Justin Tucker in those final moments, and he trotted out there and reminded everybody that he is the greatest of all time, hitting a huge 55-yard kick and proved that this team was deserving of getting into the playoffs. And that was, like I mentioned, the catalyst for this season's change. Voss, what did you take away from this matchup?
Scintillating game, one of those games where you can't fall asleep for hours when you really want to afterwards. But the Ravens haven't had one of those in prime time in a while. I guess probably New England last year, but that was more of a blowout. This one was back and forth, just so exciting with the 2-minute warning, and Lamar comes out of the tunnel and immediately hits a touchdown on 4th and long. Absolutely. It was a catalyst. It's a springboard, highest point total of the season. That's when the offense kind of got fully out of that midseason slump, and it has propelled them through this last quarter of the season and gotten them into the playoffs.
It felt like a game that you didn't want either team to lose, because that was the epitome of leaving it all out on the field. The back and forth between both teams was just an exciting and exhilarating experience as a fan, and I just loved that matchup. Now, moving on, the Jaguars were the next matchup. It was a 40-14 victory for the Ravens. I titled it as a taking care of business game. Big Cat Country, the SB Nation website that covers the Jags, published their post-game article before halftime in that matchup. They were done and fed up with it, and I don't even know if they even watched the rest of it. I know I did, because I wanted to watch if Yannick Ngakoue would get his full-blown revenge game, and he did. He was my notable player of that matchup and my only really true takeaway from that game, from my perspective, just because he started to heat up a little bit, and that's what you wanted to see from him coming down the stretch.
Yeah, Ravens started extremely fast in this game. Then they, defense had a little sack party, and they just mauled Jacksonville as expected. Don't have too much more to add. Jacksonville was hoping to get the Trevor Lawrence at that point, and the Ravens took care of business.
Yep. Moving on to the second final game was the New York Football Giants matchup. Ravens once again defeated their foe 27-13. Daniel Jones was sacked 6 times. The Ravens, further revved up the rushing attack. The trio of Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, and Gus Edwards rushed for more than 240 yards on the ground. This was another game that, it appears the scoreline's close because the Ravens didn't bury another 40-burger after they did in back-to-back games, but it was a 2-touchdown difference essentially, and this was a layup of a match. It felt like it didn't feel competitive to me. What about you, boss?
No, it wasn't overly competitive, again, because the Ravens started fast. I think that's the common thread of the last 3-4 games, and that's going to be really important moving forward. We'll get on to that later, but the Giants are just outmatched. The Ravens, again, racked up quite a sack total, and they also had some good passing success early in this game, and Giants were just kind of one of those mediocre, middling teams, and the Ravens dominated them as they should.
And the final matchup heading into week 17, the Ravens had a win-and-in situation, and when they did, the Bengals were trounced 38-3 victory for the Ravens. Voss, what did you have on this game?
Just dominant, both sides of the ball, really. Obviously, the historic rushing offense, but the defense, I don't believe, allowed a first down until very late in the first half, and then they kicked that field goal. I guess they wanted to not be shut out. Again, the Ravens, they're just a better team than this competition, and they did what they needed to do. Just overall, before we move on to the next segment, this probably wasn't the regular season that most of us expected, many of us expected. There were some bad injuries. Obviously, the coronavirus outbreak. There was a midseason offensive slump. The defense blew some leads. It was up and down. The Kansas City game was a tremendous letdown early on. Again, though, it's a new season. Playoffs are here. who knows? Maybe this 2020 teams will do what the 2019 couldn't do. They have a fighting chance, that's for sure.
Yep, completely agree with that. This has been quite a peculiar season with, as you mentioned, the injuries, with a pandemic, with everything that's gone on. The Ravens' internal outbreak itself being such a notable mark in this season. But to finish covering the game, I wrote this down. I'm happy that you mentioned the field goal, and it's not just me that's pointing this out, because I thought this was cowardly. I thought Zach Taylor was cowardly to take yet another field goal to avoid his second straight shutout against the Baltimore Ravens. He did so in the first game, and he was cheering about it on the sidelines and fist pumped that he didn't get blown out. And then they did it again, and I thought that, I wrote this in my winners, losers, MVP article, that Zach Taylor was, that Don Martindale, if this is his last game for the Ravens as defensive coordinator, if he finds a job elsewhere, he was 2 field goals away from back-to-back shutouts on Zach Taylor, and that's the way that you love to go out on your final season against, a divisional opponent and winning that. I also wanted to take note that the Bengals defense celebrated an early interception, did the side, the end zone cam, posing like every team tends to do when they are, they get the takeaway. That's big, it's a big deal. But they did this and then proceeded to allow the 4th most rushing yards in an NFL game ever. Not just a bad game, a horribly defensed game that allowed the 4th most rushing yards. And also Jermaine Pratt, who talked smack on Twitter saying that they were going to shut down the Ravens, was the dude that got stiff-armed by J.K. Dobbins before he took it 72 yards to the house. The Bengals, at least for now, with no Joe Burrow, with no really big notable players, and I'm being a little hyperbolic here, but they, to me, are the new AFC North basement dwellers. The Browns are in the playoffs. The Ravens have, all of this exciting young talent. The Steelers are still in it, even with, Ben and his arm, or the lack thereof. And that team, like the Bengals, are pitiful in some regards. And I thought this game really encapsulated how I'm not a fan of them.
If your name is Zach with just a C and you look like that, then you're kicking field goals to avoid the shutout, and your team is playing like that. Like, that's just, I don't make the rules. And like, in all seriousness, like that was like the peak of the next Sean McVay. Like, he was the absolute dregs of that whole situation. Like, just go get the young 30-year-old white guy and like with the offensive thing or whatever, and like try to figure it out. And like, it's to this point, like, kind of hasn't worked out. And weirdly, Joe Burrow's injury might have saved his job there, and we might have to deal with that again in some capacity. But it does hopefully feel like the NFL is swinging back around where, some more people more deserving of opportunities like that are going to get them, maybe like Wink Martindale. We'll see.
Yep, that's a great point. I hated it. Vas, am I overreacting here?
I don't know. I don't think you're overreacting to the field goal, because that ticked me off too. I agree with you there. But then again, I don't want to come off like Joe Judge. If you want to stop it from getting a field goal, then keep them on the other side of midfield.
Of the 3 people on this podcast, you're the most like Joe Judge. You're a big integrity of the game guy. You're always telling me how much you love the shield and everything like that. So.
Yeah. I don't know. Since I think you would say the job is they won 2 games, 2 back-to-back games before this game, and they were playing a little bit better. They're okay. Cincinnati has good players. They just don't, I guess, have the organizational support. I think really, if you match them up man for man, maybe not this year, but last couple years. Anyway, let's not spend too much time on the Bengals. I think we should transition into our coaching analysis, and just to pick up on the thread that both of you guys kind of left there, as far as Wink Martindale potentially leaving for a head coaching job. I would hate to see him go. I really would. I'm not necessarily sure that that's going to happen, because as much as maybe offensive coordinators or offensive quarterbacks coaches aren't getting jobs because they know Sean McVay. It is still an offensive league. There's a lot of hot offensive coordinator names out there. And in some regard, in some way, it doesn't make sense to hire a DC to become your head coach and then have to cycle through offensive coordinators year after year. But as far as the job Wink's done this year, I could not be more pleased. He has dealt with crippling injuries at various points in the defensive backfield. Basically has not been able to play his favorite formation from last year, dime, the entire year because they didn't have a third safety. He's had times where they had 2 and 3 two starting cornerbacks out, and week after week he just performs great. He is flexible, he's adaptable while always still staying true and always coming back to the aggressiveness at the end. I have great confidence in him. Defense can only do so much in this day and age of football, but I think he's definitely earned the right to say he's one of the top defense coordinators in the league.
Absolutely agree with that analysis. He's coached this team that has had a lot of talent, but he's kept them above expectations. And expectations are what you come in with any job. And he's performed exactly what was required of him, what was asked of him through the shifting. Like you mentioned, that's a great point that I hadn't considered, that they didn't get to play much dime, if at all, because of the absence of some players and injuries and an interesting cut at the beginning of the year. Overall, Wink's been spectacular and deserves to be a head coach if he wants to go pursue that. Haven't seen too much talk about that so far. Yes, he's been a candidate. He's been mentioned in names, but I haven't seen any formal requests for him so much as I've seen formal requests for a different Raven. Scott, I believe Hansen was his name. I might be completely off base. But I wrote a piece on that he was been the Scott Cohen. Excuse me.
Yeah, Scott Hansen is the NFL Red Zone guy.
So I mean, he could be great. That dude can cast 8 games at the same time. That guy he understands structure.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard him do like interviews, but he goes on like pods and stuff occasionally. He is just raring to like let his own personality and stories out. Whenever he like does an interview, he just goes on tangents. It's great.
He's a guy that you just turn the camera on and he goes for it. That's awesome. Some people you got to pry, but that's good to hear. He's just a guy that'll just spew for 3 hours, and you're like, I think we got it 2 hours ago. That's awesome. So my notes that I wanted to take away though for Coach Martindale was, they allowed only 18 points per game over the last 4 matchups, and that's quite a positive. One of those games was a 42-point game that the Browns scored on this defense, and I don't want to exclude that data point because I think that's so stupid. If you exclude the biggest, point total, it's even less. That doesn't make sense. This needs to be a part of the data. But I do want to give it a little bit of context. It was a divisional game. The Browns offense was peaking at that time. The whole team was, it felt like, at that time, especially the offense, though. And it was just, we all knew that going was going to be climactic, but I didn't think it, I don't think anybody truly called it to that degree. Jake even said, when he was watching it, and he mentioned it on the pod back then, like he just had a feeling. He was like a truffle pig sniffing out that game. He knew that the offense was going to be, it was just going to be a barn burner. He knew it. But that game kind of, set a realization like, hey, we really got to be on our shit these last few weeks, even though that we're playing weaker opponents, like this is the time to really get in the groove of things and get the machine firing on all cylinders. The last 3 games, though, against lesser opponents, like I mentioned, they allowed only 10 points per game, and there's no true, obviously statistically there is better ways of entering the postseason, but like that's where you want your team to be. You want to be allowing few points. You want to be ready, and especially against the opponent that they have coming up, which we'll go a little bit more into later. So Martindale's been excellent. The coaching's been great, and the defense has looked solid all throughout the season.
Yeah, no doubt. And he's just, I think if the time comes where he needs to make adjustments in this game coming up, and it's going to be a tough game because Arthur Smith, one of the best offensive minds out there, but I have a lot of faith in Wink. And Greg Roman, I think he's done very well over the last quarter of the season as well. I think you got to tip your cap to him. You really do. they were slumping in the midseason. There's no question about it. He has the offense humming again. They're back setting rushing records or near rushing records. His first quarter play calling has been very good, which has helped the Ravens establish early leads, which we all know is so huge for this team. I think he's done a better job with the route combinations. The touchdown to Boykin in the Cincinnati game is a good example of that, where he had Andrews. They kind of ran parallel so that the defense was drawn to Andrews. It left Boykin open. And overall, I think he's regained my confidence. I wasn't quite sure what to do or what to think of Roman in the midseason. I do reserve the right to change that opinion depending on what happens against Tennessee on Sunday. But right now, his arrow is pointing up, so we have to give him credit for that.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at too. I titled this part when I was doing my script as "Has Greg Roman figured it out again?" Because 2019 was absolutely dominant, and then they tried to they wanted to develop Lamar more as a passer, and that all makes sense. You want your quarterback to be able to be a premier passer in the passing league that is the NFL. But I think that they were pushing it a little bit too hard, and also just the offense just felt like it was in a slump the entire time, and players didn't develop as much as they could have. But since our last episode, the offense has changed drastically. They rushed for 1,043 yards in 4 games. They were averaging 260 rushing yards per game. They no longer were running Mark Ingram out there on first downs for a gain of 1 to 2. They had J.K. Dobbins become the lead back in unison with Gus Edwards, as the dual pair. And that just showed to me that they're ready to get back into what found them such great success. And I also wrote in here that Jackson became he's reverting back to 2019, and you think of the term as reverting as a negative because it's going back a step, but when going back a step turns you into the unanimously voted MVP of 2019, it shouldn't sound like a negative, and it isn't a negative. Jackson's back to running the ball when he feels it's necessary. He's the best athlete on the field when he's out there, and he needs to utilize all of the talents that he has. He's throwing, and maybe it's because the passing concepts have been simplified, or maybe they're finding things that are more successful tendencies. But he's thrown 9 touchdown passes over those last 4 games, only 2 interceptions, and one of them was an awkward tipped ball. So, this feels like a great offense, and whether it's just Jackson or not, which I don't believe it is, I think Roman has got back into this, and he's, really trying to scheme up things that'll make this offense more successful. I think this is, largely Roman's doing by utilizing the strengths of Jackson more.
Lamar's definitely been running more down the stretch here. I don't know if that's a product of Roman or Lamar or his health or what it is, but Roman also he's found that counterpunch, right? So when he first took over, they were running all over everybody. And then the Chargers put more defensive backs on the field in the playoffs. So then last year they went to a lot of heavy personnel with 2 tight ends on the field. And then this season, defensive coordinators adjusted to that. So now he's running a lot out of spread formations. So he is adjusting. I hope he can adjust maybe fast enough. If there's something thrown at him in the first half of a game where he's ready to go in the second half, it doesn't take him 2 weeks to figure it out because they don't have that kind of time anymore.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Any other notes, Jake? Do you have anything to add about either coach or both?
No, I think you guys have covered it pretty well. It's just, I think as much as this game is a fairly big sort of test for Roman, I think kind of getting to that stage where the question has always been playoffs, or it was, X can't do it, Lamar can't do it, Roman isn't good, and then it's moved to the playoffs. It's big for a lot of respects. So I am looking forward to a big performance from Greg Roman this weekend, win or lose. I think it's going to, unfortunately, maybe dictate the narrative, so to speak, of the offseason. So,
yeah, and also we'll have to see the context.
Maybe fortunately,
Yeah, no, either way.
Right.
Hopefully, fortunately, let's be optimistic.
Sure.
I'm just a guy who I try to avoid being reactionary and basing everything on one thing. So like, even if it is like a positive, it's like, okay, well, maybe let's not get too, head over heels here with this. Let's try to just, keep it between the mustard and the mayo. That's what I like.
You're a stabilizing force around here, Jake. That's what you are.
That's many people have said that about me.
That is a line for the ages. Keep it between the mustard and the mayo. Oh, I like it. I like it. All right, Vas. Time to move on to our favorite segment, maybe? Winners and losers. Which would you like to start with?
Let's go with winners, and let's go with the man who has regained his MVP form. I don't think there's any question about it. Lamar Jackson in the last 4 games is playing just every bit as well, as great, as exceptional and dynamic as he did throughout the 2019 season. In the last 4, he has 2 games with 3 passing touchdowns. He has 3 games with 80 or more rushing yards. He's seeing the field very well. He has great touch on the majority of his passes downfield. He just seems unstoppable right now. It seems no matter the down or the distance, 3rd and 9, 4 runners in the backfield, no problem. I'm going to evade all 3 of them and toss a dime to Andrews or Hollywood, or make 6 guys miss in the open field and pick up the first down. He's just on another level right now. He's Superman right now. And I'm so excited to see him back in that form, and I really hope he continues it the next month all the way through.
Yeah, of course I have him in my winners column as well, near the top. 700 passing yards over the last 4 games, and he tacked on another 336 rushing yards. As an overall he scored 12 touchdowns. He only had 3 turnovers, is what I've seen. And like you said, it felt like he could do no wrong, especially in that Browns game, when he showed back up on the field, throws an instantaneous touchdown to Marquise Brown, then gets the ball back when the Ravens have to take it again, and he, marches down the field once again and gets Lamar Jackson into field goal position. He was every bit of what was necessary these last 4 games, and like you said, he looks MVP once again.
For sure. You want to go next?
Yes. I have, maybe a little controversial here, Miles Boykin as my winner here. Over the last 4 weeks, he's scored 2 touchdowns. He's just getting like 1 pass play per game. He's only getting 2. He's averaging just over a target per game. He's catching every other catch is for a touchdown at this point. And, maybe that's all that was needed for him to get involved with this and make some more plays. Maybe the Dez Bryant signing is what sparked this. Maybe it's just the offense being more rushing aligned, which opens up him more in the receiving game. Either way, he's done an excellent job of getting open and creating separation and making the catches when he's called upon.
Yes, Boykin's playing better for sure. This time, 5, 6, 7 weeks ago, it looked like he was going to be fighting for a roster spot come next training camp. I'm not ready to say I'm happy with him as a number 3 receiver necessarily next season. Maybe even not a number 4, but he is contributing. So happy to see that. I'm going to go with my next winner, Ben Powers. He became the full-time starter at right guard in week 11, and he just hasn't looked back. There's been a steady rotation at right tackle on his right side between Fluker and Phillips. There's been a rotation due to injury and ineffectiveness at center on his left side between McCarty and I think Skura was benched before then, but TCC. And Powers is just in there, throwing people around and it's displaying physicality. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the rushing offense took off once he was inserted. And a lot of people thought he should have been the starter earlier in the season, much like Orlando Brown in 2018, but better late than never.
I like the Ben Powers pick. I went with the guard as well, but I picked the left guard, Bradley Bozeman. He has, he's been continuing the success that he's already had. And I believe he's been on our winners list probably multiple times at this point. But, for him to still make the plays that he's doing, to, pull around, seal off edges, just the offensive line as a whole has to be at least of a decent caliber if the offense is averaging 260 rushing yards in over the last 4 games. I think Bozeman's done great. He's also in line to maybe win the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, which I don't think can be understated. It's not a play making award solely. It's about doing off the field stuff, and I think I want to take some time to appreciate what he's done. He's been great off the field. He joined us for a podcast on the Baltimore Beatdown podcast. It was super fun there. And overall, just on and off the field, has been a great person with great work ethic. And I'm excited for him to stick around with the Ravens for a long time, hopefully. I'm a big Bozeman fan at this point.
Good choice. He's been on my list, I believe, twice already. Definitely a season-long winner. My next winner is your boy, Kyle, Anthony Averett. He was really picked on in the Dallas game. Mm-hmm. And that came right before, I believe, or 2 games before this final quarter of the season. Since then, he has really, really found his form as a cover corner. And he's had a heavy workload with Peters and Jimmy hurt, and even Tremont Williams and some of the other journeymen they picked up. Pretty much almost everybody's been hurt. 5 pass breakups in the last 3 games. That's Chris McAllister kind of stuff right there.
Yes, sir.
He's even showing some better ability than I thought in run support. Made a nice tripped up the back. I think it was on the edge. Was it Pirine who last week? I was talking to our old friend Yitzy maybe 3 weeks ago, and he was saying we'll pick a corner. I talked to him a lot. We still keep in touch, but regardless, he was saying Ravens are going to have to pick a corner, probably round 4. Looking at it, and after everybody was going down, now you look at it. They locked up Jimmy for another year, which is an A+ move. Everybody knows how much I love Jimmy. Yeah,
we love Jimmy. We love Jimmy.
We. You have Peters. You have Humphrey. I think Tavon restructured, if I remember, and now you have AA. That's a really good cornerback quartet or quintet for next year. So Averett's really stepped up. Very encouraging. Finally put it together.
Averett was also on my list. As everybody knows, I've been a big supporter of AA since he was drafted. That was the guy that I interviewed my first day of training camp. His rookie year, I got him the second year, and I've been trying to interview him, every single year because, he was looked at as one of the top corner prospects from Bama, and I think at one point was rated higher than Marlon Humphrey was. And to have both of them on the same team and to have Marlon become what he's become, which is incredible. To see Averett, not overtake Humphrey, but still be great over these last 4 weeks or so has been really exciting. When Jimmy Smith, came out, was drafted by the Ravens, it took him a long time to really become what he is and what he was at the time. Cornerback development is incredibly difficult, and I've talked about this a lot. And Averett, maybe he just needed a lot more time. Some players are pro ready; they're in, and they can show up and show out from day one. They can pop off, from day one. Other guys take some time. They got to sit in the cask a little longer. Maybe that's what it is, and get some refinement in there. But Averett's, the time was ticking on him a bit, but he's really stepped up, and I'm thrilled that Averett's performed well. He's got a 62 overall grade from PFF. I think that's pretty good, all things considered, for the few amount of snaps that he's been in. He's taken 100% of snaps, in week, I believe 14 and 15 and 16. And then week 17 took 93% of them. He's over 150 snaps over those last 3 games. And, hopefully, everybody comes back and is healthy, and he only has to be a CB4. But if he's called upon like he has been, starting opposite of Marlon Humphrey, it's pretty exciting to watch, those two Bama corners just doing it at the pro level with on the Ravens squad.
And not even, long term's great, next year's great, but if the Ravens are fortunate enough to advance and maybe match up against a Buffalo or a Kansas City down the road, you're going to need other corners you could get, and maybe you use Jimmy in a little bit different role. And it's really great to have a guy with the natural ability, and now he's found the consistency and the feel for the position.
Yep, I would agree with that for sure. My winner, I also had Justin Tucker, because I wanted to make mention of that kick against the Cleveland Browns yet again. The team said, I believe it was Harbaugh said, like, there's one guy you believe in that that kick's going in on, a 55-yarder in the difficult stadium and that it is, and he just goes out there like it's no biggie and smashes home that kick. I don't have all the stats pulled up in front of me right now, but I just, Tucker's been, a huge part of this team's success, and if they lose that game, this is likely the end of the season right here. I don't think they could have taken that loss, and they needed that win. They got it, and Tucker was a huge part of that solution.
Yeah, you just expect at this point. You recognize greatness when you see it. I have two honorable mentions, I'll call them. Not quite full-blown blunders, but worth mentioning. First one, Mark Andrews. His TD production has slowed down a little bit. The yards are still there. He's really had the last few games, at least, a Pro Bowl caliber season on par with what he did last year. Wasn't quite as great in the middle of the year. He just also made several special catches, just mulching the defensive backs. So I thought he deserved the mention. The other one is Chuck Clark. He's always been that cerebral Iron Man, try hard kind of guy, and it's great and it's appreciated, and the communicator on the back end. But I do think his coverage has been noticeably better the last 2-3 games. He's been more physical. He had a pick, so I think he deserved mention.
Yeah, I like both of those. I think those are fair. I didn't do any honorable mentions this time around. I probably should have focused on that a little bit more. But moving on to the losers, do you want to round this up first?
Sure. The obvious guy is Mark Ingram. He was our number one unanimous loser last show, and since then he has had 9 total touches in 4 games. He's been inactive, and I think he's probably going to be inactive in the playoffs. At least if I was setting the depth chart, I would leave him off because I don't think he brings very much to the table. It's just remarkable how fast he fell off from one season to the next.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair to say. We expected the 30-year wall to hit. I don't think we expected it this badly. I thought he'd come in, have a productive season, maybe 600 to 800 yards, 5-6 touchdowns. A reasonable stat line because he was such a figurehead in the 2019 offense. But they drafted J.K. Dobbins, and so you thought the production would go down for that reason. But that wasn't the reason his production went down. It wasn't because they were trying to give Dobbins a huge share, at least early in the season when they were utilizing Ingram. And we saw it then that he just doesn't have it anymore, at least to the degree that I know he would want to be performing at. I wouldn't have him on the depth chart either going into this game against Tennessee. The Ravens have been effective running the ball without him. They've been effective passing the ball out of the backfield without him. J.K. Dobbins has looked good, and they could probably incorporate him more there. Same thing with Gus Edwards. They could incorporate him out of the backfield. We saw his spectacular catch a couple weeks back and his catch and run. So this is, I think, when it's all, I think he's probably played his last snaps as a Raven, barring something, further down in the postseason, hopefully.
Yeah, in a different offense, maybe he could be more effective as a pass blocker, but he's just not bringing much to the table. You want to go next, Kyle? I don't want to steal all your thunder.
Yeah, you're good, man. You're good. I had Malik Harrison as one of my losers. He has not been on the field much, if at all. I was searching through this, and I was like, man, I'm not finding a whole lot of losers. When the team is crushing it like they are, 4 or 5 straight wins, they've looked good, offense is humming. I was like, the defense has done really well, like we were saying with the points. And I was like, man, who am I missing or who am I forgetting? And I was like, well, is Patrick Queen not doing too great? Where's his stat line? Where's he been performing lately? Because we've talked a lot about him and his splash plays and whether that's valuable enough or not to be a winner or loser. But then I was like, Chris Board's got a lot of run. I bet he's, been taking the snaps from Queen. And then I looked at it, and Queen's been playing in most snaps. He's been on the field. He's, I believe he racked over 100 tackles. Malik Harrison has been only on the field for the last 3 weeks, fewer than 10 snaps. He hasn't hit double-digit snaps on defense in 3 straight weeks now. And Chris Board, meanwhile, has been on the field for double-digit sacks all those times. So I got to have Malik Harrison on there. I expected more from him. Some people had him higher on the expectations list than Patrick Queen, even though Queen was drafted first. We thought, Malik Harrison looked great, especially the value at his round level, and he's a pretty good linebacker. He looked pretty good early, but overall, I just didn't see much of him on the field, and I don't remember anything too notable that I can't put my finger on. What did you think?
I think that's fair, Kyle. I definitely expected more out of Harrison this season. That's probably my worst take that I've had this year, I have to say. I expected a lot more out of him. And we probably should have put Chris Board on the winners list now that you say that. Because he's taking snaps from Fort. He's taking snaps from Harrison. He's taking snaps from Queen. He's, in a way, probably taking snaps from Levine, keeping him off the field as a pseudo dime. So I think that's a fair one. And I also had to think outside the box because there's not a whole lot of winners when they win 4. But I think I have 2 that are probably accurate. Jalen Ferguson, he's been a healthy scratch in 2 of the last 4.
Yep.
Very little impact, just a couple tackles and 1 pass deflection. When you think about it, Judon's making plays, McPhee's making plays, Ngakwe's making plays, Bowser's making plays, and Ward is making plays. And Ferguson's not really doing too much. He's still young. There's time, but this is definitely not the breakout year that some expected in year 2.
Yeah. I actually have Bowser. I think just a dishonorable mention. These last 4 weeks, I was really excited about him. I thought he'd close out the season really well. But I didn't see it from him. He didn't have a sack in the last 4 games. He had only 2 quarterback hits. He did have the interception against Cleveland, which was awesome, which was huge. And that's why I don't have him as a full loser, because he's being utilized in coverage so much that it's hard to track, where his impact is, because those aren't stat sheet stuff. He's been a great coverage linebacker. I believe he might still be rated really high by PFF. But I just wanted to see more from him down the stretch. And it could be because Yannick Ngakwe's taken some snaps from him, or Derek Wolfe, or just a combination of other players. And overall, I just wanted to see more. Tyus Bowser is always this exciting player. He's an athletic freak, and he's made some plays all throughout the season. I just wanted to see some more from him down in the last 4 games, especially with the context of these were lesser opponents, and this is where you can really show out, stuff the stat, the sack totals, maybe the QB hits totals, or some tackles for loss, and really maximize his the cliche linebacker on the Ravens and a contract year numbers.
I'm not sure I agree with that one, but you make fair points. It's just a logjam at outside linebacker, just like the running backs. There's a logjam there too. Kind of a little bit interesting the way DeCosta built this roster. Out of curiosity, before I give you my last quote-unquote loser, Bowser, Judon, and Ngakwe are all unrestricted. Let's pretend that they're all going to get a 1-year, $10 million contract. Obviously, they're going to be different than that. But let's say everything being equal, who rank the 3 in order of how much you like to see them return?
Oh, man. So I'm going to start with Bowser. I'm not going to put him higher or lower than anybody. I just want to, he's always felt like this enamoring potential player. I think his entire Ravens career, an NFL career, has been this enamorable player that you want to see break out, you want to see pop off. And that's where I haven't seen it. 1 year, 10 million. I'm not too thrilled with that, especially considering you could, if under these circumstances, you can take Judon or Yannick Ngakoue for the same price tag. I think I would rank it. I think you go Ngakoue 1, Judon 2, and it's close there. And then I think you take a step down with Bowser at 3. I think that's the way you got to go. I like the coverage ability of Bowser, but the track record for the other two players is something you can't exclude here.
Interesting.
What are your rankings on it?
I probably tilted the question by saying 1 year deal.
Mm-hmm.
So let me say it this way: if it was a 3-year deal, I go Bowser 1, Judon 2, and Ngakoue 3.
Really?
If it's a 1 year deal, I go Judon 1, Bowser 2, and Ngakoue 3. And the rationale is that the other two guys can do so much more than Ngakoue. And it's great that he gets pressure, and he gets more pressure than both of them. But if you have outside linebackers that can drop into coverage, and obviously Bowser's better than Judon, but Judon's a very good run defender too. Mm-hmm. It allows you to get pressure from different angles. If Ngakoue was getting home on all these sacks, that'd be one story. He's getting a ton of pressure. I think he has 3 sacks with the Ravens through 7 games. So that, at least that's personally how. But let's see what happens on Sunday. Because if you have Bowser that drops into coverage, then you can send somebody else Queen up the A gap, mm-hmm. and then Queen gets the pressure. You know what I mean? So does it matter that you're getting it? I'd rather have pressure on the interior than off the edge, to be honest.
Well, of course you want pressure in the interior over that, but are you meaning interior pressure through your defensive lineman, or are you meaning it through blitzing of a linebacker, or switching the pressure being sent from the edge to the interior by sending the A-gap blitz by your middle or weak side linebackers? I think that's a different take there. I think interior pressure, to me, when I think of it, is going to be, can Campbell, Wolf, or Williams go there? Of course I would like to get interior pressure more than edge pressure, but another point you said is Judon is a better run defender. Everybody can be good at run defense and or should be adequate in it. Maybe Ngakoue isn't to the level that Judon is, but I want the consistent edge pressure. I think that's something that needs to be more prevalent in this Ravens defense. And if you don't get Wink Martindale back next year, and you got to stick with one of these guys, who's been the most consistent at creating pressure? I think Ngakoue is that guy. And for that reason, I think I value him above it over Judon and, Bowser.
All right. Well, I think I'll agree to disagree. And I think we have a great topic for our first off-season show to do a little debating, because I have a little bit more ammunition I'll unveil then.
Oh, great.
My third loser is going to be Nick Boyle. You hate to Wally Pipp the guy in a way. Mm-hmm. He's a terrific blocker. However, the run game has been thriving, absolutely thriving, with career-long practice squatter Eric Tomlinson serving as that blocking tight end. Uh-huh. And I think it raises a legitimate question. Do you really want to pay Boyle a $7.8 million cap hit next year to be a blocking tight end if you can 80-20 him or 85 him, whatever Tomlinson or another one of these blockers that you can find on a practice squad is? Right. For what it's worth, the Ravens can save $5.5 million against the cap in his base salary if they do release Boyle. So I think it's hasn't been a great for his long-term value, at least.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't consider him on this. I tried to shy away from injuries, or else I would have maybe even put Tavon Young on there, just because of the the thriving of the cornerback depth being shown here. But that makes a lot of sense that, yeah, you got to consider whether or not paying Boyle that much money is necessary when, I've mentioned it so many times during the pod, averaging 260 rushing yards without Boyle and without Stanley is pretty huge. And that's something to take note of. Lamar
does it all.
Yep. He has, the angles that, like, I think you've mentioned it so many times too, when we talk and discuss this stuff is, he just changes the angles so much that nobody else can replicate it. We saw it when RG3 goes into the game. He can't do anything near that. And the angles change from wide to the outside to they can attack him in the backfield. I assume Huntley was the same way and McSorley was the same way. They just can't get to him the same with that. I thought I had one more on here. Where did it go? I thought I had one more. Not seeing. Did I delete it? Don't seem to have it. Do you have any others? Whoops.
No, not really. Not really. Jake, you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I did have one winner.
Okay.
My one winner is dads. What do dads like? They like the smell of nice, fresh, cut grass in the sun.
Where are we going?
They like a nice light beer, Maybe have a couple of those. They like to take a nap after having a couple of those. Maybe a little TV on in the background. They get ready for their game to come on. But when their game comes on, what do they like? They like to yell at the TV, namely about the cover 2 defense. On the offensive side of the ball, they like to yell at the TV about establishing the run. Dads are the winner here over this past month because the Ravens have established the run in the ways that they had not done since probably 2019. I mean, we talked about the opening of the season trying to turn Lamar into this passing quarterback. I think he had probably as much to do with that as the coaching staff did. I think he wants to be, this kind of drop back pocket passer, and I think he can be on his best day. But I think, we found the happy medium here where he can do that, but he can also be this dynamic scrambling threat that we all know that he is. When he does that, he unlocks this offense and its potential to do what it needs to do, which is establish the run. And we have seen them establish the run over this last month, and particularly it came to a head on this past Sunday in a way that we have not seen them do it in a very long time. So Dads is my winner.
I really thought this was going further than where you took it. Nicely done, I guess.
I must be an outlier because I have 2 children, and
I was going to say
I think we need to establish the pass. Forget about the run.
You're the one exception. You're the new millennial dad. It's like, oh, you got to establish the pass here, Roman. What are you doing, man?
Go look in the queue right now. The headline for Ravens News tomorrow literally says "Establish the pass."
Does it really? I got to go to it right now. Oh, that's going to be gold.
Well, I had you as my last winner, I think, last episode. Because
you did. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
You're even right on some of your issues that you had. But
would you look at that?
We're now a little bit more between the mustard and the mayo than.
I did find it. It was Justice Hill was my last loser. It's done. That's another running back that he's just not going to operate successfully. At least here, he's done some good things on special teams. He's done some bad things on special teams. That the Ravens got 3 straight sacks, and then I believe he was the guy that ran straight into a punter that allowed a long touchdown drive by the New York Football Giants. And he should be successful in this rushing offense. If Gus Edwards can do it, J.K. Dobbins can do it. You'd think that somebody that has the multi-tool threat ability of Justice Hill, he's able to catch passes out of the backfield, and they're not utilizing that a whole lot in this offense. I get, but even the rushing game, you'd think that after a couple years in this offense, he'd be able to he'd be more prevalent, but that hasn't been the case.
It's just not getting touches. I think he'd be a great number 3 next year once they move on from Ingram. I don't think they need to draft another running back early.
I don't think so either.
There's no way.
When they do, we're having you on this podcast.
He'll got,
live pod.
3 hours.
I'm going to be rioting on Russell Street if they do that.
I can't wait.
One angry Greek man sitting in front of the statue of Johnny Unitas with a picket sign.
Hill ran 2 for 21 against Cincinnati, 10.5 average. I think that's better than anybody's.
I cannot wait.
Ugh.
All right, let's move on to this playoff game because I don't know. I think it's not the matchup I was hoping for.
It most certainly was not the matchup I was hoping for. I certainly didn't want the Bills. The Bills are a machine right now, but the next machine would be Derrick Henry on terms of people I didn't want to face, or A.J. Brown. And unfortunately, both of those guys are on the Tennessee Titans. Ravens, Titans, revenge game, rematch, the rematch of the rematch. What are your first thoughts on this going in? Surface level thoughts.
I think this is the second toughest matchup they could have found. I think the Ravens match up better with Buffalo than they do with Tennessee. Tennessee has just out toughed them the last 2 games in a row. And on the flagship, Jake and Spencer talk about dogs and dog ratio and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm a little concerned that Tennessee has more dogs, including their coach and their whole team that decided to dance on the logo. There is an intimidation factor in football. There really is. And the Ravens had that. And I grew up on that Billick football and Ray Lewis running out of the tunnel and, pregame, lapping the entire field with the linebackers like he's marking his territory. And the Ravens have some tough guys, but Tennessee does too.
Yep. My biggest thought that I went into this with is this is what Eric DeCosta built this team for. He went out and got these trench work players. He drafted Broderick Washington, Justin Madubuike. He drafted, he signed Calais Campbell. He traded for Calais Campbell. He signed Derek Wolfe. They have Brandon Williams there. They drafted 2 linebackers, Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison. You wanted to stop Derrick Henry. You were scared of Derrick Henry. They showed you up last year in the playoffs. This is what you built this team for. This is the time for you to show that you're genius or your mind, and you thought all of it through. And we're probably going to play the Titans again. What do we do to stop them? This is what you spent all of the offseason for, the draft, this year as a whole, like grinding it out. This is why I am excited for this game, is because this is what they put all of their chips on. They didn't create a team to battle with the likes of KC and Pittsburgh, like we said. They didn't draft a bunch of horses to run with the game. They drafted a bunch of, they signed and drafted and picked up a bunch of dogs to fight in the trenches, and this is the fucking game to do it.
The way to neutralize Henry is the game script. It's not to, spend a ton of money on run stuffers and draft picks. And Henry just doesn't worry me nearly as much as the game script does. The one question that's been hovering over this team ever since that Chargers playoff game 2 years ago, can the Ravens, when they're forced to pass, not when it's a tight game, not when they're down a touchdown like they were to the 49ers and when they're down by 2 scores, when they're down by 14 or 17, if they get down there, but if they are, can they chase points? Can Lamar and Roman and the receivers, can they chase points? That's what really scares me about this game, because you don't know how it's going to start. The Ravens are evenly matched, if not better matched. But if they are, then put in that position, Tennessee does have some guys. They have Bayard, their safety, who can neutralize Andrews. Dory Jackson, he can run with Hollywood. They have Desmond King. They're the slot man they traded for. He can lock down Snead. And then big Simmons on the interior can get after that unproven offensive line, the centers, the guards, when they don't have the protection of the run game and the deception and the RPO and the read option. That's what concerns me on that side of the ball. I think it's absolutely imperative for Greg Roman to devise. Maybe he can script out the first 3 drives, But if the Ravens score first, the first drive is the most important on offense, the most important drive of this entire game. No question about it.
Do you think that is the first offensive drive for the Ravens specifically, or just the first drive, whoever gets the ball first is more tone setting?
I think it definitely has to be both. Sorry to jump in, but if you look at that Cleveland game, they drove right down and scored a touchdown, and it's like, oh shit, like here we go. Ravens drive right down and score a touchdown. So, and that's where I was kind of figured it out, a little shootout here. I don't know if this is going to turn into a shootout, even if that happens, but it does kind of feel like first drives are going to be setting the tone.
Okay.
I mean, the Ravens had an 11-point lead on Tennessee, and they couldn't put them away, and then in overtime. But they can stop Henry early. They've proven that.
They did. So not to and again, I hate to jump in on you guys here too.
You're part of the show, man.
Come on in. The water's warm.
So we were talking about this the other night a little bit, and we're going to get into it in our preview as well. But they stopped Henry for the most part of that game. It was just 2 long runs at the end. Deshaun Elliott was manhandling Henry in a way that I have seen no player do.
Yeah, he smacked him hard. Even go back to the playoff game last year, and they were stuffing Henry. Henry had 3 yards per carry until they hit that play action bomb to Raymond. And then they had a big lead, and then they could pound Henry. They were stuffing him hard.
Yeah, and essentially my overarching point is that it's great to do that, but eventually he's maybe going to get a few off. So what you can't afford to do is make stupid mistakes and shoot yourself in the foot. And that's obviously 105.7 caller take right there. But I think it's true. You just can't get in your own head. And they did that in the game this year where they're up 10 points. Lamar throws a deep interception. All of a sudden it turns, and that was the turning point of the game. And that's what cost them. So maybe you can afford to turn it over, but you can't be in a position where you're able to give the momentum back, because as much as some people in, well-informed circles like to argue that momentum doesn't exist or whatever, intimidation, like you mentioned, Vas, I think that does exist to an extent. Momentum exists to an extent as well. If you've ever played, you know that. So I just think that game flow is going to be a big part of this one. I don't know if I'm totally down on that as of right now, but I do think it's going to be an important part of this game.
I like those points. That makes a lot of sense. Something that I really took note of when looking up at Tennessee, we notice a lot of the offense, and they have defensive playmakers like Voss mentioned, Byard, Adoree Jackson, Desmond King, but their third down defense and also their pass rush. If you thought people were frustrated with the Ravens pass rush and the lack of total sacks by this franchise, get a load of the Tennessee Titans sack total. I'm going to put the over at 18. Do you think they are over or under on that?
They're under. They're way under.
They are at 19. They're at 19, just barely. That's they're one of the first teams. That's why I put it tough. I put it tough on there on purpose. I had to mess with you. I needed to get a win against you tonight. That's what was going on here. I had to get you. So I was listening to a podcast a little bit ago that said that this is one of the first teams ever, or one of the very few teams that have ever made the playoffs with a sack total by the team under 20. And this is something that I'm excited about going into the game, because the Ravens offensive line has been stout these last few weeks. They've been run-centric, which has minimized sacks, of course, and allowed them to gain ground. But also when they are throwing the ball, Lamar's been incredible at avoiding pressure. And also when the pressure has arrived, and sometimes they're allowing some big pressures. Jackson's had to make some Houdini-like moves, vanishing from four impending or imposing defensive players. Closing the entire pocket, and he's gone, and he gains 15. And the Titans are going to come here with a strong game plan against them. But if they can't cause pressure on Jackson, nothing's going to come of it. And Jackson's been excellent on third down. And the receivers are starting to get some separation. They're starting to get some better looks in and make better plays. But Jackson, if he wants to be in the pocket and you're going to let him be in the pocket, eventually they're going to find something. They have great coverage. The Titans do. I'm not arguing that, but I think you give Jackson enough time and enough space, and he's going to figure a way to get a first down.
I think the problem is the line of scrimmage. You have to win the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. That's really what cost them last January.
Yep.
And I really do think that the battle that's going to determine this game is Ravens offense against Titans defense. The other side of the ball, obviously AJ Brown's a monster. He's really the one that turned that game and took it into overtime, just running over people. Saw some people say just stick Humphrey on him, and Humphrey's great. I love Humphrey. I don't think Humphrey can handle him one-on-one all game long. I don't think so. He's huge. On the bright side, their offensive tackles are not good. I do expect Ngakoue and Judon to really put some pressure on Tannehill if you can get Tannehill chasing a little bit. That's really the key. Who's going to get who else chasing? Because if Tannehill's sitting back there and they're up or they're neutral game script, Arthur Smith starts using those play actions, those bootlegs, start putting Patrick Queen in conflict. I am a little bit scared about how Queen's going to fare.
Very scared about Queen. Yep.
This is not a great matchup for him because they're really going to target him. I think he's kind of the weak link against a team like this. You see Tannehill every week just taking those plays and those and running the ball, for chunk plays, long touchdowns. Couple interesting statistics I saw from a PFF article that ranked every team in the playoffs as far as who's the most complete. They said the Ravens are the 12th most complete team out of the 14, which isn't great, but I don't necessarily disagree because the Ravens are so kind of unbalanced in a way. The Ravens defense is ranked 26th in missed tackles and 30th in yards allowed after contact. And then in offense, the receivers are ranked 28th in both drops and overall receiving grade. So what that tells me is you got to get the run game going early, get some points on the board, and things will fall into place. If not, it's going to be a really tight game.
Defensive side of the ball, I think you mentioned like the idea of interior pressure really mattering, and a lot of people are looking at that 2019 playoff game as a barometer for this game. And like I get it from an idealistic sort of meta perspective, but I think as far as like an actual on the field barometer, I think you have to look at the matchup from this year in 2020. And you mentioned some of the issues on the field with the defense in that game. No Brandon Williams, no Calais Campbell. And you talk about dogs. Calais Campbell is a dog with a capital D. Brandon Williams, he may be a house cat, but he's a pretty good player in the run game. So I think getting those two guys back is going to be very big, and that's probably going to help Patrick Queen a little bit. I am very worried about A.J. Brown, and I think you're going to be rolling coverages his way regardless of who is on him because that's a guy that could absolutely break this thing open.
Yep. Secondary is going to have to truly step up to face off against this Titans wide receiver group. A.J. Brown is a man. He's a real dude. He is that dude. And just like you said, Vas, putting Humphrey on him one-on-one is not the answer. Humphrey is a linebacker playing corner, but A.J. Brown is a running back playing wide receiver at times.
The defensive end playing wide receiver.
Yeah, he's tough, dude. He's real deal, and that's why a lot of us loved him coming out of the draft. He was maybe one of our, some of our picks at where they drafted Marquise Brown. So that's this is going to be a very exciting game. Is where I'm at with this. And I like the point that you made, Jake, that was something I was thinking is that, you get these guys back that you didn't have last time. Derek Wolf's entire job was like, you are the only guy that's left that can stop Derrick Henry. So like, it's up to you. And and Wolf for that amount of time did so, he was great. And then he shouldered the blame when they broke loose and Henry scored the overtime touchdown. And he was, on the field face down. He was so frustrated with himself because he couldn't get off all the blocks. So that's something that's can't be understated or overstated enough is that they were missing two of their biggest trench work men the last time they faced. And it's going to be an absolute dogfight. At least I hope it's going to be, God, I don't want.
I hope it's a blowout. I hope the Ravens win by 40.
Yeah.
Like everyone's talking about like you guys opened like the segment with like, this was not the matchup I wanted to see from a perspective of like, okay, are they going to win? Like, obviously you're right there. Like I would have rather gotten the Colts, but like, this is an exercise of the demons game, man. This is like giving me throwbacks to, I mentioned the 2000 Ravens America's game. Give me some, flashbacks to that. I think it's a very fun matchup, one of the burgeoning great rivalries in an NFL that really needs one. So I think for the NFL's perspective and for perspective of a fan base that has lacked a really strong rival the last couple of years, sans the Steelers here and there, I think this is the matchup that's got the most juice.
Yeah. On the bright side, Roger Saffold, their best offensive lineman remaining after Luan's hurt and Conklin's in Cleveland. He looks like he's banged up. And Corey Davis, Matt Cohen's boy. If you guys remember Matt from back.
Oh, yeah. Shout out Matt Cohen.
Down days. He was having a great year, and he's been awful the last 2 weeks. He's like dropping everything. So you never know. Any week, anything can happen. The Titans can have 19 sacks on the year and have 5 in one game. You never know. Final thought before we get out of here, and I'm cautiously optimistic about the Ravens in this week, and I think they have a real fighter's chance to make a deep run this year. I think the long term, the X factor for this January for the Ravens is going to be that third wide receiver. Can Dez Bryant or Miles Boykin or Devin Duvernay, can they step up and give you some chunk plays when you need them? Because if they can, this team can make it to the Super Bowl.
Is Willie Snead coming back healthy too?
I think he will, but he's not necessarily a chunk play guy.
Yeah, he is.
He's like the 8-yard catch it while he's getting smashed.
Catch it wrong.
But yeah, there needs to be some yak in this game. I think that's true. My X factor is I think Lamar Jackson. Can he he answered the call against the Browns in prime time? Can he do it this time against the Titans? And can he just close this out and get the monkey off his back that he can't win a playoff game, even though he's, only been in 2 and he's just turned out to turn 24 tomorrow, his birthday's this week. So I think this is, I'm a little more optimistic about this matchup than I was last time because I was so confident last time. I didn't consider just how true the Titans were and how real deal they were. This time I feel like I'm watching this game with more knowledge and more understanding of that they're such a better team than we gave them credit for last year, at least that I gave them credit for last year. So that's where my confidence level is at. I think I'm optimistic. And if you can beat the Titans, I think you match up, like you said, pretty well with everybody. You say they match up even better with the Bills. I don't know about that. But
they have the corners, and the Bills can't run the ball or stop the run, and the Ravens have enough corners to cover the receivers. So I do like that matchup. Okay,
so I think they can make a deep run if but you got to get this first one knocked out, and there's no better time than right now to do it. All right, boys. Any other final thoughts? Any last words?
Looking forward to it. A double triple header. Should be an awesome weekend. It's been a long week already. We still have 4 or 5 more sleeps until we get there. Can't wait.
Yeah. Yep. Super wild card weekend.
What a name.
Super wild card weekend.
I think they should add 2 more. Just go all the way with it.
Just go
double
for
quadruple header.
Yes. We're going to have 18 teams in the playoffs. The NFC East is sending the Washington football team and the Giants.
You could have put the Cardinals and the Dolphins in. That wouldn't have been terrible.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right. Jake, you ready to close this on out?
Sure am. Sounds like you actually have another media appearance that you have to make here if you would like to plug that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I am going to be on Ken McCusic's film study in about 10 minutes. So, so check out Film Study by Ken. Ken's a great guy, and I'm excited to be on his show. I think Vas and Frank have both been on the show. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been on Ken's show quite a few times. Tell Ken I said hi. He does a great job.
I will. So that'll be dropping, I assume, tomorrow or the next day. And as always, follow this show, at Podcast Beatdown. I'm going to steal a little bit of Jake's stuff here. At Podcast Beatdown. You can follow me at BB_Kyle P. Barber. And the new thing that I've been doing a whole bunch of lately has been Twitch. You can follow the show where I live stream post-game report stuff, and we're even playing some backyard football on there now. And Lamar Jackson's the quarterback on my backyard football team. That's a little bit of fun. Twitch.tv/Baltimore Beatdown. Vas, take it from me, please.
And
you can follow me at Vasilis Beatdown, VASILIS BEATDOWN on Twitter. It's been great, and hopefully we'll catch a W, and maybe we can do this again same time next week.
Absolutely. You can follow me at Jake Luke. That is LOUQE. Check out our Instagram page as well, which Spencer does a great job with, Baltimore_Beatdown. Got my Lamar Jackson Ghostface Killer mixtape up there today, so be sure to check that out as well.
Absolute fire.
Yeah, it was. I appreciate that. Really appreciate everyone tuning in. Have yourselves a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you again very soon.
All right.